The stage rattled to a stop in front of the dusty trading post, and Nora Rosewood stepped down onto Wyoming soil with trembling legs and a heart that beat like a drum against her ribcage. She clutched her carpetbag tighter, scanning the handful of weathered faces that watched her arrival with varying degrees of curiosity, but none of them stepped forward to claim her as their intended bride. The afternoon sun blazed overhead in the summer of 1878, turning Rawlins into a shimmering mirage of false promises and desperate hope. "You the mail-order bride," a gruff voice called from the porch of the general store. Nora turned, smoothing her travel-worn skirts with one hand. I am looking for Mr. Silas Thornton." The man spat tobacco juice into the dirt and jerked his thumb toward the far end of town. "Thornton's place is that way, but you might want to brace yourself, miss. He ain't exactly the welcoming type." Her stomach twisted into knots, but she had come too far to turn back now. Boston felt like another lifetime, another world entirely. The textile factory where she had worked 16 hours a day had finally closed its doors, leaving her without income or prospects. When she had seen the advertisement seeking a bride for a Wyoming rancher, she had responded with a mixture of desperation and hope. The letters that followed had been brief, businesslike, devoid of warmth. But Nora had convinced herself that affection could grow from practicality, that a marriage of convenience could become something more. She walked down the main street of Rawlins, past the saloon where piano music drifted through the swinging doors, past the blacksmith's forge where sparks flew like fireflies. The houses grew more sparse as she reached the outskirts, and finally she saw a small ranch with a weathered sign that read, "Thornton." The man who emerged from the barn was tall and broad-shouldered, with a face like carved granite and eyes that held no warmth whatsoever. He looked her up and down as if she were livestock he was considering purchasing. "You are late," he said without preamble. "The stage was delayed in. I do not care for excuses. You will sleep in the back room. You will cook, clean, and tend the chickens. We will be married tomorrow at noon. Do not expect conversation or companionship. I need a worker, nothing more." Nora felt her throat tighten, but she nodded. What choice did she have? She had spent her last dollar on the journey west. That night, lying on a thin mattress in a room that smelled of dust and neglect, Nora wept silently into her pillow. This was not the life she had imagined, not the marriage she had hoped for, no matter how modest those hopes had been. The wedding the next day was as cold and perfunctory as Silas himself. The preacher spoke the words, they signed the papers, and that was that. Silas did not kiss her. He did not even look at her with anything resembling kindness. That evening, he handed her a list of chores and retired to his own bedroom without another word. 3 weeks passed in miserable succession. Nora worked from dawn until dusk, and Silas barely spoke to her except to criticize her cooking or complain about some task left undone. He never called her by her name. When he addressed her at all, he simply said woman or you. She had never been called wife with any tenderness, any warmth. The word itself had become just another label, as meaningless as the marriage certificate gathering dust in Silas's desk drawer. On a Thursday morning in late August, Nora was hanging laundry when she heard hoofbeats approaching. She turned to see a rider coming up the path, and her breath caught in her throat. The man sat tall in the saddle, his hat pulled low against the sun, and even from a distance there was something different about him, something that set him apart from the hardened men of Rawlins. He dismounted with easy grace and tipped his hat to her. "Morning, madam. Is Silas Thornton about?" His voice was warm honey, a stark contrast to Silas's perpetual growl. Nora found herself staring at his face, taking in the strong jaw, the kind eyes that crinkled at the corners, the slight smile that played at his lips. "He is in the north pasture, checking the fence line," she managed to say. "I am obliged." He started to turn, then paused. "I am Yates Emerson. I have the ranch about 5 miles west of here. Silas and I have had some disputes about property boundaries, but I am hoping to settle things peacefully." "Nora," she said, then added hastily, "Mrs. Thornton." Something flickered in his eyes at that, a shadow of disappointment perhaps, but he nodded politely. "Pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Thornton. I did not realize Silas had married." Before she could respond, Silas emerged from behind the barn, his face darkening at the sight of their visitor. "What do you want, Emerson?" The warmth drained from Yates's expression, replaced by cool professionalism. "I came to discuss the water rights issue. We need to come to an agreement before the dry season gets worse." "There is nothing to discuss. That creek runs through my land." "The creek runs along the boundary. We both have legal claim to it." Silas took a threatening step forward. "Get off my property." Yates held his ground, his jaw tightening. "I am trying to be reasonable here, Thornton, but if you force my hand, I will take this to the territorial court." "Try it." Silas's hand moved to the gun at his hip. Nora gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Yates noticed the gesture and raised his hand slowly. "I am not looking for trouble. Just think about what I said." His eyes found Nora's for a brief moment, and she saw concern there, concern for her. Then he mounted his horse and rode away. Silas turned on her with fury in his eyes. "Get back to work. And if I catch you talking to that man again, you will regret it." That night, Nora lay awake thinking about the kindness in Yates Emerson's voice, the way he had tipped his hat to her as if she mattered. It was more respect than Silas had shown her in their entire marriage. The next morning, she rose before dawn as usual and started breakfast. Silas ate in silence, then stood to leave. "I am riding to Casper. I will be gone 3 days. Do not leave this property." After he rode away, Nora went about her chores mechanically, her mind elsewhere. She was gathering eggs when she heard a sound from the barn, a low moan that made her blood run cold. She hurried over and found one of Silas's horses lying on its side, clearly in distress. Panic seized her. She knew nothing about horses, and if the animal died, Silas would blame her. She stood there helplessly for a moment, then made a decision. Gathering her skirts, she ran down the road in the direction Yates had ridden the day before. The 5 miles felt like 50, and the summer sun beat down mercilessly. Her lungs burned and her legs ached, but she kept running. Finally, she crested a hill and saw a ranch house in the distance, much larger and better maintained than Silas's property. She stumbled into the yard, gasping for breath. A man came out of the house, and relief flooded through her when she recognized Yates. He was at her side in an instant, his hand steadying her. "Mrs. Thornton, what is wrong?" "The horse," she panted. "Something is wrong with the horse. Please, I do not know what to do." "Where is Silas?" "Gone to Casper. Please, the horse might die." He did not hesitate. "Wait here." He disappeared into the barn and emerged moments later with his own horse already saddled. He mounted, then reached down. "Give me your hand." She hesitated only a second before taking it. He pulled her up behind him with surprising ease, and she had to wrap her arms around his waist to keep from falling. The warmth of his body, the solid strength of him, made her heart race in a way that had nothing to do with fear. They galloped back to the Thornton ranch, and Yates was off the horse before it fully stopped. He examined the animal with gentle, knowing hands. "Colic," he said finally, "but I caught it early enough. Help me get him standing." For the next 2 hours, they worked together to walk the horse, to ease its suffering. Yates's patience and skill were evident in every movement. He talked to the animal in soothing tones, and gradually the horse began to improve. He will be fine now, Yates said at last, wiping sweat from his brow. You did the right thing coming to get me. Nora felt tears prick her eyes, tears of relief and exhaustion and something else she could not name. Thank you. I was so frightened. You ran 5 miles in this heat. He looked at her with something like wonder. That took real courage. No one had ever called her courageous before. I did not know what else to do. They stood there in the barn, dusty and tired, and for a moment the world seemed to shrink down to just the two of them. Yates cleared his throat and looked away. You should get some water. You must be parched. She led him to the house, hyper-aware of his presence beside her. She poured water from the pitcher and handed him a cup, their fingers brushing in the exchange. The touch sent a jolt through her entire body. Mrs. Thornton, he began, then paused. May I be frank with you, please? Silas is not a good man. I have known him for 3 years, and in that time I have seen him mistreat animals, cheat at cards, and run roughshod over anyone weaker than himself. His eyes met hers, intense and serious. If you ever need help, real help, my door is open. I am his wife, she said quietly. I made vows. Vows should be honored by both parties. Does he treat you well? She could not answer, could not voice the loneliness and misery of the past weeks, but her silence spoke volumes. Yates's jaw clenched. I should go, but please remember what I said. After he left, Nora sat on the porch and allowed herself to imagine, just for a moment, what life might have been like if she had answered a different advertisement, if she had come west to marry a man like Yates Emerson instead. When Silas returned 3 days later, she told him about the horse. He grunted an acknowledgment but did not thank her for saving the animal. That night, he was in a foul mood, and Nora retreated to her room as quickly as she could. September brought cooler temperatures and shorter days. Nora's life fell back into its dreary routine, but now she had a secret to sustain her, the memory of kindness, of being treated like a person rather than a possession. She did not see Yates again until a Sunday morning when she convinced Silas to let her attend church services in town. Silas himself never went, considering religion a waste of time, but he agreed to her request with a dismissive wave. The small church was packed with ranchers and townspeople, and Nora slipped into a back pew. Halfway through the service, someone sat down beside her. She glanced over and her heart stuttered. Yates. He nodded to her politely, and they sat through the rest of the service in charged silence. After the final hymn, people filed out into the sunshine, clustering in small groups to chat. Mrs. Thornton, Yates said quietly. Might I walk you back to your wagon? She knew she should say no, knew that being seen with him would cause gossip. But she nodded anyway. They walked slowly through the dispersing crowd. How have you been? He asked. Well enough, she lied. And Silas, the same as always. He stopped walking and turned to face her. I cannot stop thinking about you. The words hung in the air between them, dangerous and thrilling. Nora's breath caught. You should not say such things. I am married. I know. Believe me, I know. I have tried to put you out of my mind, but I cannot. His voice was rough with emotion. The way he treats you, it is not right. You deserve so much better. What I deserve and what I have are two different things. She blinked back tears. This is my life now. It does not have to be. What are you suggesting? She looked around nervously, but no one was paying them attention. I am not suggesting anything improper. But if you wanted to leave, if you wanted to seek an annulment or a divorce, I would help you. I would make sure you were safe and provided for. The offer was tempting, dangerously so. But Nora shook her head. Divorce is a scandal. I would be ruined, and Silas would never agree to it. Then what? You will spend the rest of your life in misery. I do not know. Her voice broke on the words. I just do not know. Yates reached out as if to touch her hand, then thought better of it. At least know that you have a friend. If you need anything, anything at all, come to me." She hurried away before she could do something foolish, like throw herself into his arms and beg him to take her away from this half-life she was trapped in. October arrived with the first frost, and with it came increased tension. Silas's temper grew shorter as his financial troubles mounted. He had gambled away much of his money, and the ranch was failing. He took his frustrations out on Nora with cutting words and impossible demands. One evening, he came home drunk and angrier than she had ever seen him. "I know you have been talking to Emerson," he snarled. "People in town have been gossiping. He helped with the horse, nothing more. Do not lie to me, woman. I see how you look when his name is mentioned. I do not know what you mean." He grabbed her arm hard enough to bruise. "You are my wife, mine, do not forget it." After he passed out, Nora packed a small bag with shaking hands. She could not stay here anymore. She would rather face scandal and poverty than live in fear. She slipped out of the house in the dead of night and began walking toward Yates's ranch. The moon was bright enough to light her way, but every shadow seemed threatening. Every sound made her jump. She had walked perhaps 2 miles when she heard hoofbeats behind her. Terror gripped her heart. Silas had discovered her escape. But when the rider came into view, she saw with relief that it was not her husband, Mrs. Thornton. Yates dismounted quickly. "What are you doing out here alone at this hour?" "I left him." The words tumbled out. "I could not stay any more. I know I have nowhere to go, no money, no prospects, but I could not stay." He moved toward her, his expression fierce and protective. "You do have somewhere to go, my home. I will protect you. People will talk. Your reputation, I do not care about my reputation, I care about you." He said it simply, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "You barely know me. I know enough. I know you are brave and strong and kind. I know that you deserve to be cherished, not broken down piece by piece." He cupped her face gently. "Let me help you." She nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. He helped her onto his horse and they rode through the night to his ranch. The house was warm and welcoming, a stark contrast to Silas's cold dwelling. Yates showed her to a guest room. "You will be safe here. Get some rest. We will figure out the next steps in the morning." But sleep would not come. Nora lay in the comfortable bed, listening to the sounds of the house settling, and wondered what she had done. She was a married woman hiding in another man's home. The scandal would be enormous. In the morning, Yates made breakfast, and they sat at the table discussing her options. "I will take you to see a lawyer in Rawlins," he said. "There are grounds for annulment or divorce given Silas's treatment of you. It will take months, maybe years. And in the meantime, where will I stay?" "What will I do? You can stay here. I have a housekeeper who comes 3 times a week, so propriety will be somewhat maintained. And I need help with the accounts and correspondence. I could hire you as my secretary." It was a practical solution, but they both knew it was more than that. They were dancing around feelings neither of them could quite acknowledge yet. Silas came looking for her that afternoon, riding up to Yates's ranch in a fury. Yates met him in the yard, his stance protective. "She is my wife. Send her out here now. She does not want to go with you." "I do not care what she wants. She belongs to me." "She is not property, Thornton. She is a person with her own will." Silas went for his gun, but Yates was faster. He had his own weapon drawn before Silas cleared his holster. "Do not do this. Go home. Let the courts settle it." For a tense moment, they stood in a standoff. Finally, Silas spat on the ground and holstered his weapon. "You have not heard the last of this, Emerson. I will make you both pay." He rode off, leaving threats hanging in the air. The next weeks were difficult. Silas spread rumors through town, painting Nora as an adulteress and Yates as a home wrecker. Some people believed him, others sided with the couple. The lawyer Yates hired was optimistic about getting an annulment based on Silas's failure to consummate the marriage and his abusive behavior, but the process would indeed take time. Through it all, Yates remained a steady presence. He treated Nora with respect and gentleness, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. They worked together during the day, managing the ranch affairs, and in the evenings they sat by the fire and talked for hours. She learned that he had come west 5 years earlier from Missouri, seeking adventure and independence. He had built his ranch from nothing, working brutal hours to make it successful. He loved the land, the wide open spaces, the freedom of the territory. "Why did you never marry?" she asked one evening. He was quiet for a moment, staring into the flames. "I came close once. There was a girl back in Missouri, Rebecca. We were engaged, but she decided she did not want the uncertainty of frontier life. She married a shopkeeper instead." He smiled wryly. "I was heartbroken at the time, but now I think it was for the best. We wanted different things. You still think of her, sometimes, but not with longing anymore, just as a part of my past." His eyes met hers. "I have been thinking about someone else much more lately." Her heart raced. "Yates, I know the timing is terrible. I know we need to be careful, but I want you to know how I feel." He moved to sit beside her on the sofa, close but not touching. "From the moment I saw you in Silas's yard, something in me recognized something in you. It sounds foolish, I know." "It does not sound foolish." She reached for his hand, feeling bold. "I feel it too, this connection between us." He lifted her hand to his lips and pressed a soft kiss to her knuckles. "When you are free, truly free, I want to court you properly. I want to do this right." "I would like that very much." November brought the first snow, blanketing the ranch in white. Nora had been living at Yates's ranch for 6 weeks, and they had fallen into a comfortable rhythm. She managed the household accounts and helped with correspondence, and in her free time she began learning about ranch work. Yates taught her to ride, patiently guiding her through the basics. One afternoon, they rode out to check on the cattle in the south pasture. The sky was a brilliant blue, and the snow-covered landscape sparkled like diamonds. Nora felt freer than she had in months, perhaps in her entire life. "You are a natural rider," Yates said, watching her with approval. "I have a good teacher." She smiled at him, and he smiled back, that warm expression that made her stomach flutter. They dismounted to inspect the fence line, and as they worked side by side, Yates began to talk. "I have been thinking about the future, about what I want my life to look like. And what do you want?" "A partner, someone to share the work and the beauty of this place with, children eventually running around the ranch, a real home, not just a house." He turned to face her fully. "I want all of that with you, Nora." She felt tears sting her eyes, but they were happy tears this time. "I want that too, more than I can say." The lawyer believes the annulment will be granted by spring. Silas has not contested it, probably because he knows he has no legal ground to stand on. "Once you are free." He trailed off, his meaning clear. "Once I am free, I will marry you. If you will still have me." "Still have you." He laughed and pulled her into his arms, propriety forgotten in the joy of the moment. "Nora, I would wait forever for you if I had to." He kissed her then, soft and sweet, and Nora felt as if her heart might burst from happiness. This was what love should feel like, she realized. Not duty or obligation, but this soaring, wonderful feeling of rightness. Christmas came, and Yates gave her a beautiful leather-bound journal. "For recording your thoughts," he said. "And maybe, someday, for writing down the stories of our life together." She gave him a scarf she had knitted in secret, working on it late at night by lamplight. He wore it every day after that, even when he did not really need it, and she loved him all the more for the gesture. In January, Silas lost his ranch to gambling debts and left Wyoming, heading to California according to rumors. His departure made things easier for Nora and Yates. The gossip died down, and more people in town began treating them with warmth again. The annulment was granted in March of 1879, and Nora wept with relief when the lawyer brought her the papers. She was free. Truly, finally free. Yates proposed that very evening, getting down on one knee in front of the fire. "Nora Rosewood, will you do me the great honor of becoming my wife?" "Yes," she said through happy tears. Yes, yes, yes. They were married in April in the same small church where they had sat together that fateful Sunday. This wedding was nothing like her first. The church was filled with friends. The sun shone through the windows in golden beams, and when Yates looked at her, his eyes were filled with such love that she could hardly breathe. And when the preacher said, "You may kiss your bride," Yates cradled her face in his hands and kissed her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. The first morning of their married life, Nora woke to find Yates already awake, watching her with a soft expression. "Good morning, wife," he said, and the word was filled with such tenderness, such love that it brought tears to her eyes. "Good morning, husband," she whispered back. It became their ritual. Every morning, without fail, Yates would wake her with those words, "Good morning, wife." Not just wife as a label or a title, but wife spoken with love, with affection, with all the warmth she had been denied in her first marriage. And every morning she fell in love with him a little bit more. The summer of 1879 was the happiest time of Nora's life. She and Yates worked side by side, building their ranch and their life together. They laughed often and talked endlessly, sharing their dreams and fears and everything in between. In August, Nora discovered she was pregnant. She told Yates over dinner, her hands shaking with excitement and nervousness. His face lit up like the sun. "A baby! We are going to have a baby in the spring, the doctor thinks." He came around the table and swept her into his arms, spinning her around until she laughed and begged him to stop. "I am going to be a father. You are going to be a mother. We are going to be a family. We are already a family," she said, touching his face. "But yes, we are going to grow." He kissed her thoroughly, then dropped to his knees and pressed his ear to her still flat stomach. "Hello in there, little one. This is your father. I cannot wait to meet you." Nora ran her fingers through his hair, overwhelmed with love for this man who had saved her in every way that mattered. The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the fall and winter. Yates was attentive and protective, refusing to let Nora do any heavy work. He read to her in the evenings, his hand resting on her growing belly, talking to their baby about the ranch and the life that awaited. In March of 1880, on a snowy evening, Nora went into labor. The midwife was called, and Yates paced the floor anxiously, refusing to leave despite the midwife's suggestion that he wait elsewhere. After hours of labor, their son was born, healthy and squalling. Yates cut the cord with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face. "A boy," the midwife announced. "A fine, strong boy." Yates held his son for the first time, and Nora watched as her strong, capable husband transformed into a tender, awestruck father. "Hello, little man. I am your papa. I love you so much already." They named him James, after Yates's father, and settled into the exhausting but joyful routine of new parenthood. Yates was a devoted father, waking in the night to help with feedings, changing diapers without complaint, spending hours just holding his son and marveling at him. "I never knew I could love anyone as much as I love you," he told Nora one night, their son sleeping between them. "But somehow my heart expanded, and now I love you both more than life itself. We are so blessed," she whispered back. "I never imagined I could be this happy." The years passed in a blur of happiness and hard work. James grew into a sturdy toddler with his father's dark hair and his mother's green eyes. In 1882, they welcomed a daughter, Sarah, who had Yates's gray eyes and Nora's quick smile. Yates was as tender with his daughter as he had been with his son, braiding her hair when she was old enough, carrying her on his shoulders, reading her stories before bed. He was the kind of father Nora had always hoped for her children, present and loving and patient. The ranch prospered under their joint management. Nora had a head for business that complemented Yates's practical skills, and together they expanded their holdings, hired good men to help with the work, and became respected members of the Rawlins community. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Yates took Nora on a picnic to the spot where he had first kissed her, out by the south pasture. The children were with a neighbor for the afternoon, giving them rare time alone. "You remember that day?" he asked, pouring her a glass of wine. "I remember every moment of falling in love with you," she said, "even the difficult ones. I wish I could have spared you those difficult times. I wish you had never had to experience that first marriage. No," she shook her head firmly. "If I had not gone through that, I would not appreciate this. I would not know how rare and precious what we have really is." She took his hand. "Every morning when you call me wife with such love, I am reminded of how it used to be, and I am grateful all over again. I will call you wife with love every morning for the rest of our lives," he promised. "And I will spend every day making sure you know how cherished you are." He kept that promise. Through all the years that followed, through good times and hard times, through droughts and harsh winters, and all the challenges that frontier life brought, Yates woke his wife every morning with those same loving words. In 1885, they welcomed another son, Thomas, and in 1887, twin girls, Emma and Grace. Their home was filled with noise and laughter and the beautiful chaos of a large family. Nora taught the children to read and write, giving them the education she had scraped for as a child. Yates taught them to ride and rope and respect the land. Together, they raised children who were confident and kind, who knew they were loved beyond measure. On summer evenings, the family would gather on the porch, and Nora would tell the children stories. Sometimes she told them about Boston, about the girl she used to be, scared and alone in a factory town. Sometimes she told them about the journey west, about taking a chance on a mail-order marriage. "And then what happened, Mama?" Little Sarah would always ask, even though she had heard the story a dozen times. "Then I met your father," Nora would say, smiling at Yates, "and he saved me." "I did not save you," Yates would correct, pulling her close. "You saved yourself. I just loved you while you did it." The children would giggle and make faces at the affection between their parents. But Nora knew, they understood on some level how special their family was, how rare it was for a marriage to hold this much love and partnership. As the children grew older, James showed an aptitude for ranching and began taking on more responsibility. Sarah was drawn to medicine and talked about becoming a doctor, a lofty ambition but one her parents supported. The younger children were still finding their paths, but they had time. In 1890, Rawlins had grown from a rough frontier town into a proper community with schools and churches, and even a small hospital. Yates served on the town council, helping to shape the territory's future, and Nora worked with other women to establish a lending library and a school for immigrant children. They had built a good life, a meaningful life, together. One evening in the fall of 1890, after the children had gone to bed, Yates and Nora sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. "You ever regret it?" Yates asked quietly. "Coming west? Everything you went through?" Nora considered the question seriously. "I regret the pain of that first marriage. I regret that I was ever in a position where I felt I had no choice but to answer that advertisement. But I do not regret the journey itself, because it brought me here. It brought me to you and to this life we have built. I think about it sometimes, he admitted. How easily we might have missed each other. If I had not ridden to Silas's ranch that day, if you had not needed help with the horse, if 100 small things had been different. But they were not different. We found each other. She laced her fingers through his. That is what matters. He brought her hand to his lips and kissed it. I love you, Nora Emerson, more today than yesterday and less than tomorrow. I love you too, always. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky, and Nora reflected on how far she had come from that frightened girl stepping off the stage in Rawlins. She had been looking for safety, for security, for a place to belong. She had found all of that and so much more. She had found love, true love, the kind that sustained and strengthened. She had found a partner who respected her mind and cherished her heart. She had found a family and a home and a purpose. And every single morning, she woke to her husband's voice saying, "Good morning, wife," with all the love in the world, reminding her that she was treasured, that she mattered, that she was loved. In the spring of 1892, James married a sweet girl named Catherine from a neighboring ranch, and Yates and Nora became grandparents for the first time when their grandson was born in 1893. Holding the tiny baby, watching her own son become a father, Nora felt the circle of life complete itself in the most beautiful way. Sarah, true to her dreams, left for medical school back east in 1894. It was hard to see her daughter go, but Nora was proud beyond words. She and Yates had raised their children to reach for their dreams, and now they had to let them fly. The younger children were still at home, filling the house with energy and life. Thomas was 14 and already nearly as tall as his father, helping with the ranch work. The twins were 10, still young enough to be playful but growing more independent each day. In 1895, Yates and Nora celebrated their 16th wedding anniversary. It was a quiet celebration, just the two of them, taking a ride out to their favorite spot on the ranch. 16 years, Yates mused. It feels like both forever and no time at all. I know what you mean. Nora leaned against him, content. I cannot imagine my life without you in it. You will never have to. I plan to be around for a very long time, pestering you and calling you wife every morning. She laughed. Good. I would be lost without my morning greeting, speaking of which. He turned to face her, suddenly serious. I have been thinking about building a new house, something bigger with more room for when all the children come home with their own families. What do you think? I think that sounds wonderful, though I will miss this house. We have so many memories here. We will make new memories in the new house, and we will keep this one for James and Catherine if they want it. They spent the afternoon planning and dreaming, just as they had done so many times before. That was one of Nora's favorite things about their marriage. They were still planning a future together, still dreaming of what could be, still excited about the life they were building. The new house was completed in the spring of 1896, a sprawling ranch home with enough bedrooms for all the children and future grandchildren. Nora decorated it with care, mixing practical furniture with special pieces that held meaning. The rocking chair where she had nursed all 5 babies, the quilt her mother had made, the wedding photograph that captured the joy on their faces. On the first morning in the new house, Nora woke to find Yates already awake, just as he had been on their wedding day so many years ago. Good morning, wife, he said, his voice still filled with all the love it had held 17 years earlier. Good morning, husband, she replied, smiling. Some things, the best things, never changed. Sarah came home in 1897, having completed her medical training. She opened a practice in Rawlins, becoming the first female doctor in the territory. Nora and Yates attended her opening day, bursting with pride as they watched patients file in to see their brilliant daughter. Thomas met a girl at a dance in 1898 and courted her with the same dedication his father had shown. When he asked Yates's advice on proposing, Yates told him, "Just be honest. Tell her how you feel, and if she says yes, spend every day showing her that she made the right choice." Thomas took the advice to heart, and by 1899 he was married to his sweetheart, Alice. The twins, Emma and Grace, were as different as could be despite being identical. Emma wanted to be a teacher, while Grace dreamed of running her own dress shop. Nora encouraged both, knowing from her own experience that women needed to be able to stand on their own feet. As the new century dawned in 1900, Yates and Nora found themselves entering a new phase of life. They were in their 40s now, still young enough to work hard but old enough to appreciate rest. Their children were grown or nearly so, building their own lives. The ranch was successful and stable, providing well for the family. One summer evening, sitting on the porch of their beautiful home, surrounded by the laughter of children and grandchildren visiting for Sunday dinner, Nora looked at Yates and felt her heart swell with gratitude. "What is it?" he asked, noticing her expression. "I was just thinking about how far we have come, about everything we have built together." He pulled her close, and she rested her head on his shoulder. "We have been blessed. Yes, in ways I never imagined possible." Inside, they could hear Sarah playing the piano while the grandchildren sang along off-key. James was showing Thomas something on a piece of paper, probably plans for expanding the barn. Catherine and Alice were cleaning up from dinner, talking and laughing. The twins were arguing good-naturedly about something inconsequential. This was family. This was love. This was home. "You remember the first thing you ever said to me?" Nora asked. Yates thought for a moment. "I asked if Silas was about." "No, before that. You said morning, madam." "It was such a small thing, but you said it with such respect, such kindness. I had been at Silas's ranch for weeks, and no one had shown me that kind of basic human decency. You deserved so much more than decency. You deserved everything, and you gave it to me. You gave me a life I never dreamed possible. You gave me love and family and purpose. You gave me yourself every single day. It was easy to give you everything when you gave me just as much in return." He kissed the top of her head. "You made me better, Nora. You made my life complete." They sat in peaceful silence for a while, listening to the sounds of their family, the life they had created together. "I have something for you," Yates said eventually. He pulled a small box from his pocket. "I know our anniversary is not for a few months, but I saw this and had to get it for you." Nora opened the box to find a delicate gold locket. When she opened it, she found a tiny photograph of the two of them on one side and space for another photograph on the other. "For the grandchildren," he explained, "so you can carry all of us with you." She threw her arms around him, overcome with emotion. "It is perfect. You are perfect. I am far from perfect, but I try to be the man you deserve. You are exactly the man I need," she corrected. "The man I love more than words can express." As the evening deepened and the stars emerged, the family gradually departed, returning to their own homes and lives. James and Catherine with their 3 children. Thomas and Alice still in the early glow of newlywed life. Sarah heading back to her small house near her practice. Finally, it was just Yates and Nora again, as it had been at the beginning. They walked through the house, blowing out lamps and checking that everything was secure for the night. In their bedroom, Nora carefully placed the locket on her dresser, knowing she would wear it every day from now on. As they settled into bed, Yates pulled her close and she fit against him perfectly as she always had. "You know what I am most grateful for?" she asked into the darkness. "What?" "That I took the risk. That I answered that advertisement even though it was terrifying. Because if I had stayed in Boston, if I had let fear keep me trapped, I never would have found my way to you. I am grateful you took the risk too, though I wish you had not had to suffer first. The suffering made the happiness sweeter. I know what it is like to be called wife without love, so I appreciate every single time you call me wife with it. I know what it is like to feel worthless, so I treasure every moment you make me feel valued. I know what it is like to be alone, so I never take our partnership for granted." "My beautiful, wise wife," he murmured. "I will spend the rest of my life making sure you feel loved. You already do, every single day." They drifted off to sleep wrapped in each other's arms, secure in the knowledge that whatever tomorrow brought, they would face it together. The years continued to pass, bringing changes and challenges, but always grounded in the solid foundation of Yates and Nora's love for each other. By 1905, they had 7 grandchildren with more on the way. The ranch had expanded to one of the largest in the territory, employing dozens of men and supporting multiple families. Yates's hair had gone silver at the temples, and Nora had laugh lines around her eyes, but they were still as devoted to each other as they had been as newlyweds. They still took rides together when they could, still sat on the porch in the evenings talking, still woke each morning to Yates's tender greeting. "Good morning, wife. Good morning, husband." It was a ritual that never got old, a daily reminder of the covenant between them. In 1907, Wyoming became a state, and Rawlins celebrated with a huge festival. Yates and Nora attended with their entire family, watching the fireworks and dancing to the band. At one point, Yates pulled Nora away from the crowd and led her to a quiet spot. "Remember when this was just a dusty frontier town?" he asked. "When we were just starting out? I remember everything. Every moment with you is precious. I have been thinking about what comes next. We have built the ranch, raised our children, seen them settled. What do we do with the time we have left? We enjoy it," Nora said simply. "We watch our grandchildren grow. We travel a little if you want. We continue to be partners in everything. We love each other for as long as we are given." That sounds perfect, and that is exactly what they did. They traveled to California to see the ocean, something Nora had always dreamed of. They visited Sarah's medical practice and marveled at how respected she had become. They spent long afternoons with their grandchildren, telling stories and passing on wisdom. But mostly, they simply enjoyed the life they had built together. The quiet mornings over coffee, the evenings planning the next day's work, the nights falling asleep in each other's arms. In the spring of 1910, Yates and Nora celebrated their 31st wedding anniversary. They were in their 60s now, slowing down a bit but still active and engaged with life. 31 years, Nora mused, plus the year before we were married when we were figuring everything out. 32 years since the day you first rode onto Silas's property. "The best 32 years of my life," Yates said. "I would not change a single moment. Well, except maybe the moments when you were suffering. I would change those if I could. Even those moments were necessary. They taught me to recognize real love when I found it." "I will love you until my last breath," he said seriously. "And if there is anything beyond this life, I will find you there too." "I have no doubt," she replied, tears in her eyes. "We are bound together now in this life and whatever comes after." They held each other close, grateful for every year, every day, every moment they had been given together. The seasons continued their eternal cycle, and Yates and Nora grew older gracefully, surrounded by family and love. They saw their grandchildren grow and begin having children of their own, making them great-grandparents. The ranch was passed down to James, who ran it with the same care and dedication his parents had shown. Through it all, through every joy and every sorrow, Yates woke his wife every morning with the same loving words he had spoken for more than 3 decades. "Good morning, wife." And every morning, Nora's heart filled with the same joy and gratitude it always had. She had come west as a desperate woman seeking survival, a mail-order bride who had never been called wife with love. She had suffered through a nightmare marriage before finding her way to freedom. And then she had found Yates, the cowboy with the kind eyes and the gentle heart, who taught her what love really meant, who called her wife with such tenderness that it became a sacred word, a daily vow, a promise renewed with every sunrise. Their love story was not perfect. It had been born from pain and struggle, forged in the fires of hardship and doubt. But it had endured, growing stronger with each passing year, becoming something beautiful and unbreakable. In 1915, as they sat together on their porch watching the sun set over the Wyoming landscape they both loved, Nora squeezed Yates's hand and smiled. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what? For seeing me when I felt invisible, for loving me when I felt unlovable, for calling me wife with love every single morning for 36 years. Thank you for answering the door that day when I rode up looking for Silas. Thank you for being brave enough to leave when you needed to. Thank you for building this life with me. I love you, Yates Emerson. Today, tomorrow, and always. I love you too, Nora Emerson, forever and beyond." They sat together as the stars emerged, just as they had done thousands of times before, two souls intertwined by love and commitment and the choice to cherish each other every single day. And when they finally went inside, when they lay down in the bed they had shared for so many years, Yates pulled his wife close and whispered the words he would speak again in the morning. "Good morning, wife," he said softly. Though it was night, she laughed, as she always did at his playfulness. "Good morning, husband." And they fell asleep wrapped in love, secure in the knowledge that whatever tomorrow brought, they would face it together as they always had, as they always would, two hearts beating as one. Their story was one for the ages, a testament to the power of real love, the kind of love that transforms and heals and endures. It was a story that would be told by their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren for generations to come. A reminder that true love is worth waiting for, worth fighting for, worth cherishing every single day. From a mail-order bride who had never been called wife with love, Nora had become the most cherished wife in all of Wyoming, loved with a devotion that never wavered, never faded, never failed. And every morning, for all the mornings they were blessed with together, Yates said it with love. "Good morning, wife."